All right, I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting back to order. Okay, we'll move on to the Art Center program. Gotcha. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mason. Go ahead. We're still at the Bimini East redevelopment.
Unless you don't want to be.
Go ahead.
I mean, that's a hard act to follow.
Uh-huh.
You know, the nice visual and everything like that, and then you get me.
Just make sure you don't talk about sod.
I won't.
Sod. S-O-D.
Sod. I'm not going to talk about dirt or grass or anything like that. So, Mark Mason, Assistant City Manager, thank you very much. I'm here to talk about the non-binding agreement that we've come up with. And as the city manager pointed out, what we're looking from the city council today is that if you're on board with us moving forward with the development of the development agreement, then what this information that we're using today will be the foundation of the development agreement. So I wanted to kind of recognize some of the people that have had a hand in developing this document. Besides Larry Nygaard and his group from Crown Development, we also had Sharon Woodbury, our economic development manager. We also had Maureen Weiss, Zach Gogol, who talked earlier, as well as Yoey Lopez, deputy city attorney, who was helping us with the legal stuff that went into this particular document. And so that group ended up is a negotiating group that developed this non-binding term sheet that we're going to kind of go through today. So you heard earlier some of the items associated with the CRA and and what the requirements are in order to fund agreements within the CRA. The items that are on your screen today, which I'm not going to go through each one of them, these are the redevelopment objectives of the Community Redevelopment Plan that this particular proposal met with regard to Bimini East. So as Mr. Nygaard went through some of the items that were responded to from the RFP, everything that was in the RFP came from this information here in the redevelopment plan and the objectives associated with the redevelopment plan. So I kind of wanted to give, again, probably a little history associated with Bimini East. As noted earlier, this has been something that's been on the horizon for a number of years. Well before, probably as long as the last time I was here when we were talking about that particular area, talking about the bridge that goes over the canal that connects the Bimini Basin to the northern side of Cape Coral Parkway and generally redevelopment within that area. So, but after Hurricane Ian, that certainly it presented an opportunity to us, and there was a willing seller of the land as well as the buildings that existed on that particular site. So we acquired and assembled the properties in Bimini East that were fragmented by ownership, and as well as, clearly there was one owner that owned quite a bit of the property, but it was certainly fragmented by others. And, because of that, it certainly constrained any redevelopment of that area. And so as in other transformational projects that have happened in other cities in the state, such as Tampa, Orlando, and Boca Raton, the city stepped in the CRAs in those areas stepped in to assemble the properties in order to create a catalyst for the redevelopment of the site. So we negotiated the acquisition of those parcels. We assembled 47 parcels on the Bimini East area. We did not purchase all of the parcels. As Mr. Nygaard pointed out, he's going to be purchasing in the northwest portion of Bimini East. That would be the banks. That would be the ice cream shop in that particular area. He is also going to be acquiring the There's a duplex on the site, and the city will participate in the 3 other multifamily units that are there, as well as George's Garage. So the city made this investment with the clear understanding that the structure and the demolition costs would need to be absorbed up front through the redevelopment agency, because what we were going to be turning over was going to be vacant land. And assembled vacant land with the majority of the roadways abandoned to allow somebody a clean slate to come in there and build a vision that is a vision that the city council can embrace. So in October 2025, we released, after we purchased the properties, in October 2025, the city released an RFP for the redevelopment proposals, and we received one RFP response. And from that point, we developed the committee to do the negotiations, and then consistent with the approval of those purchases and the financing gap, we now have a proposal for a potential or an estimated $500 million project. I do want to remind the city council that when we acquired those properties in the CRA, the city purchased the properties, entered into an interlocal agreement with the CRA for the CRA to reimburse the city back for any interest cost for carrying that land, as well as in the time when we actually sell debt, in order to carry the cost over and above the appraised value of the land, that the CRA would also reimburse the city or pay for both the principal and interest associated with that debt. The intention of issuing the debt is for the life of the CRA, so there's never anything over and above outside of the CRA that would actually pay for that debt. So this is a quick, understanding of the timeline. The RFP was available. We had a due date of October 30th. We received the proposal. We evaluated the proposal. It was the most responsive, and it was the only responsive and responsible proposal that we received. We began contract negotiations, and we are now here with you with a non-binding term sheet to understand the terms of that agreement. There will still be further negotiations if the city council is, by consensus, wants us to continue to move forward with a developer's agreement. So I want to kind of give you an idea. You've already seen this. It's not like you haven't seen this, but I mean, this is in the raw that, most of the buildings aren't there anymore. You have vacant land. So you can see the areas that the city owns. They're marked out in blue. But the project area is much larger. It takes into account all of the park, as well as, again, the 2 bank areas, the ice cream shop. Also, it takes into account all the way to the corner of Cape Coral Parkway and Coronado. This is a 34-acre site. Still subject to survey as well as vacation and roadways. So when it comes down, it'll probably be just a little bit larger than just 34 acres. You heard this morning that it's in the mixed-use Bimini current zoning. The developer is the Bimini Basin Redevelopment Company, which is essentially owned and or controlled by Crown Development. The developer will be delivering a mixed-use program generally consistent with the proposal. We already talked about all the things that will be included. Again, the total project investment as part of the proposal was $500 million over the life of the development. And the current status today is that there's an undeveloped site. Our portion of this is approximately 22 acres. So you heard much from Mr. Nygaard about what will be included in here. We're going to have 2 hotels again, 130,000 square feet of ground floor retail and dining, not broken out into any particular type of dining or otherwise. It's, or even the number of restaurants when it comes down to it. 310,000 square feet of both medical and office space, as well as 45 transient slips, 900. This was the max, 900 units. You heard from Mr. Nygaard, it's anywhere between 700 and 900. We expect to have at least, at a minimum, 4 structured parking garages. What you saw on the film this morning, as well as the overview, is actually 5, with one of them dedicated towards the office building. Ambulance, that's arts and culture, the band shell at the park, as well as something that was not talked about this morning, but is certainly something that we're looking for and including in this project, is a downtown police substation built within the project itself. So we ran the in-plan on the overall estimated impact of construction only. Since we don't know the types of business or how many restaurants or how many different retail or how many office spaces there will be today, can't really run a good impact study on that. We can emulate somebody else's development to kind of get an idea of what that means. But on construction only at a $500 million project investment, we expect that 3,401 jobs will be created from this. $246.8 million in labor income alone, $418.8 million in total value, and this is economic value, GDP, that will be added to the system for an overall economic output of about $751 million. So we expect direct on the site jobs of 2,218, indirect jobs of 591, and induced jobs of 592. This is one of those questions, if not but for this particular development, none of that would be happening. So city conveys 22 acres to the developer on a purchase basis. I'll get to the pricing and et cetera here in a minute. There are 8 privately owned structures that remain to be assembled as part of the terms that are included in here. Mr. Nygaard has negotiated a price upon agreement to the developer's agreement. We will acquire those 2 properties and turn around and sell back the underlying properties back to Mr. Nygaard. And it's included in the overall $26 million. There's one remaining property that he will acquire, and that's the duplex. It's basically right in the middle of the entire project. Again, $26.3 million will be the purchase price. This is based upon $25 a square foot, which is the appraised value of the underlying land to include the vacated roadways. Prorated purchase price for each block is conditional for any construction permit. So what that means is that we've structured the payment for each block for the $26 million. So when Mr. Nygaard comes in to pull a permit to build a hotel in, say, D2 or whatever he's going to build in D2, he would pull a permit, but in advance of that, and before permit issuance, he would pay for the land for that particular block itself. For another one of the blocks that's along Cape Coral Parkway, again, before pulling a permit, he'd purchase that particular piece of land. And it's a pro rata share of on a square footage basis of whatever the square footage is for the entire site. And the purchase price based upon the agreement is that it will be fully amortized in 10 years. So if you've only built 7 out of the 9 blocks, regardless, he'll be paying for the other 2 blocks at the end of the 10th year, whether he's built them or not. So earlier you heard, and Mr. Nygaard and I have talked about it. So I think there was a misunderstanding with regard to 4 Freedoms. Our intent is to convey the land of 4 Freedoms to Mr. Nygaard. There's restrictions associated with what the property can be used for. Those restrictions flow with the land. At the time we were talking, he was under the impression that because of those restrictions, he couldn't purchase the land, but that's not the case. He can purchase the land. It's just that the restrictions stay with the land. The restrictions are that it has to remain a park, and so it will remain a park. It even shows as a park, and what he intends to do with the property is to remain a park. At the same time, we would be exchanging a small area within the development for the playground. So by taking, well, if he leaves a playground in the Four Freedoms area, it doesn't matter. We're still looking at a larger playground complex within the remainder of the site in order to continue that which the public has asked for a playground in that particular area. So you can see, although this location that you see in white may not be the absolute location about where a playground will be, you can get the understanding that we're reimagining Four Freedoms Park. It will remain Four Freedoms Park. The name of Four Freedoms Park will continue to be there. The restrictions of the underlying parcel remain. It will continue to be a park. It will continue to be green space. Along with that, somewhere in that particular block, somewhere between the yellow block, the brown block, there'll be playgrounds. We've talked about either one single playground or two playgrounds, one for larger kids, one for smaller kids. So there's certainly a benefit that we've talked about, but that will all be determined in the final developers agreement. So some of the incentives that are included in this, I remind everybody that this is a CRA. Within the CRA will generally pay for all costs associated with this development in that area. So with the TIF, again, it's a tax increment financing. It is incumbent for the developer in order to get those funds back to get things going vertical in order to receive the $45 million. So what it really comes down to is the value that goes on the books for the property appraiser and whatever the millage rate is at the time that's being applied to that value. And so it's the tax increment of the base versus the actual new value coming on the books. And so each and every time when we set the developers agreement is when we set the base year for the development. And then from that point forward, anything that's added to that development and goes on the property appraiser's website, or property appraiser values that property, that's where the increment will be determined from that point forward. So from the increment standpoint, it goes out 16 years to 2042. As the council is probably aware or may be aware, the CRA has an end date of 2047. So there will be a minimum of 5 additional years that the CRA will continue to benefit from the increment that will be generated by this property. There's also a $5 million cap on impact fee credits. These impact fee credits for fire, ALS, parks, and mobility. We're looking at about $500,000 a year, but again, it depends on his schedule of development. And of course, impact fees are only applied when a permit is pulled. So it depends on when the permit is pulled. What will depend on when the fees are associated with the permit. This does not include the police impact fee. The police impact fee is another section of the binding term here that we would provide a credit for the build out or the building of the police substation. So whatever the value of the police impact fees associated with the development would be, all of those fees would be a credit against the building of the police substation. We're also looking at a $1.6 million cap on any demolition and grant reimbursements, up to $200,000 for 8 eligible structures. So the maximum amount that can be obtained for any demolition of any project down there is $200,000. As you'll recall, I believe we had a demolition grant for the building that was along Del Prado at $150,000. So you can get, this is a max, this is a cap, this $1.6 million, the total cost of the demolition will likely be less. A $1 million cap on the shared cost of the promenade that would connect both the Bimini Square and the Bimini East area. We would have a part in that. So if we're going to be paying something into it, we're also going to be a part of the design to understand and help this, produce something that will be, that everybody can be proud of for that particular area. So when we looked at this and we developed this term sheet, the one thing that we were looking at over and above everything else is that this is truly a transformational project for this area. if you've been around the state, there are other places that have built transformational projects. You can take a look at Meisner Park in Boca Raton in the 1990s. When they assembled old warehousing and old office space in the downtown area and put out an RFP, and a guy out of New York came down and built the entire site. And so that's a transformational project that I think changed Boca Raton a lot when it occurred. You also have in downtown in Orlando, you've got the Church Street Station area. Those areas are all within a CRA. And so they're constantly reinvesting themselves into that area in order to make it, certainly a walkable, livable area within Orlando. And of course, you also have over in Tampa, they also have an area in Tampa that does basically the same thing. I think it's down in the area of the aquarium. But it's been a while since I've been there, but these are the transformational projects that can change your downtown significantly. So as we looked at this, the appraised land value, we're recovering the appraised land value. The developers agreed to purchase the land from us, but with a clear understanding that any purchase of the land would need to be as he's developing the project. And of course, at the same time, he's identified that this project is likely to be a 10-year project, so we're looking at a 10-year term for the acquisition of the land. We're also looking at the incentives. Again, these are self-funding. If there's no development, there's no TIF. And so the the taxes have to be paid before there's a TIF rebate. And so again, it's the development itself that generates the TIF. The TIF is simply rebated back to the developer as he's developing the project. We would expect an immediate construction impact over the lifetime of this project of 3,401 jobs, $751 million in output. Of course, over a 10-year period, that number is likely to grow. The project and the associated assistance directly fulfill the CRA redevelopment plan. That's end goals. So that's important. We've talked about it probably at least a dozen times this morning. And we're going to be creating what we would consider to be a pedestrian-oriented, pedestrian-friendly environment within a 33-acre area. Public assets, we're going to be reimagining Four Freedoms Park. We're going to be creating a band shell. It's going to be an entertainment area. The playground, new playground, potentially even relocating the existing playground, but nevertheless, new playgrounds. New police substation. As the city council recall, we've talked about the idea of the old Fire Station 1, tearing it down and building one there, but we have a golden opportunity to put one in an area that would be central to the entire downtown area. And of course, the 45 boat slips, as I probably couldn't have said it any better than Mr. Nygaard when he said basically this will be a parking lot for boats. As opposed to having a asphalt parking lot for cars, we're going to create an environment where people can boat up to an entertainment district and enjoy themselves, and then go back on their boats and go home. And last but not least, we believe and has been determined and has been realized by other places in the state. Once something like this goes up, it becomes a further catalyst to the continued redevelopment of downtown area. The Cove started some of this. He came in and built Bimini Square. We now have an opportunity to change 33 acres of property down in the downtown area. And the potential of further redevelopment, further eastward, is certainly on the horizon for the city. And so that's it for me. I'm here for any questions you have regarding the term sheet.
Mark, before that, can you go back to slide 12?
Sure.
So I just wanted to expand upon this slide a little bit. I had an opportunity to speak to a resident earlier this week who was looking at adding up all of the financial elements because they're intended to be in the developer's agreement, and saying, well, these are all the incentives that we're putting into to this development or this developer's agreement. And the way some of these work, you can look at them as if they weren't even part of this project. So for example, the $1.6 million cap on the demolition grant, we would be demolishing those homes, whether it was this development or 3 smaller developments or another proposal. So the reason we're not waiting to do that and buying them and then doing that is we can put them in the development agreement, and then it works through the timeline and the time frame with this development. So it's an expense we would be incurring regardless, but we're putting that into this agreement because as they need to go through each block and or when they want to demolish them, they can do that. But this agreement or this incentive is available, as you all know, to everybody in the CRA. We will help anyone demolish old slum and blight structures. The $1 million shared cost of the pedestrian promenade. This is, again, one of those public works nature projects. We could expand and put this money into any type of public works or help do the road, but we're going to put it in this agreement so that it's done at the timeline that the developer wants to accomplish the work. The $5 million impact fee credits. Credits are gained because the developer is providing us something that we do not have to otherwise fund and build. So for example, if you take the idea of the public safety, center, if we weren't doing that in the project as part of this agreement, we would have had to had a cost to, let's say, redo fire station number 1. And so we would have collected the impact fees. We would have had to budget them to redo Chester Street old fire station 1. And we would have had a project that we administered with expenses we would have had to fund. By doing it through a developer's agreement, it removes our administrative burden to budget and manage that project. But then it gives them the ability to then have an incentive, basically a credit towards any of those. So on one hand, it looks like it's just a benefit to the developer, but on the other hand, it is saving us time, money, and the expense. So, and then the $45 million, as Mark said, that is generated from their project, just like our EVR grant. So when you look at all these, someone may say, oh my God, this is a lot. But these are all programs and all things that we would do anywhere throughout the CRA. We're just bundling them together to make the project work and be efficient for both the administration and the developer. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Donnell.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, that was one on my list, so thank you for the explanation. The second one on my list was slide 8. Would you go back to slide 8? On slide 8, the question is, when we come up with this forecast of the economic impact, what indicators do we use to get these numbers? Could someone share with me because I get questioned, well, how do we come up with this as the...
Yeah, I'll have our economic development manager go through that. The software that is used for this is universal. It's called IMPLAN. And it's used by the county. It's used by all, economic development staff throughout the nation. And what it's trying to tell you is what is the total economic output that is going to be received from a planning level estimate of a project. But I'll let Sharon go through what the inputs are for you.
Excuse me, Sharon Woodbury, Economic Development Manager. As the city manager indicated, this is submitted through IMPLAN software. They have a formula and program in place that generates the numbers that you see. So essentially what we do is we attach the construction, the dollar value of the project. We specify what type of construction is going to occur. They look at this area and calculate based on our area taxes that are generated, standard wages, all of that information specific to this area is already built into the program. And so when we put in the specific components of it, it generates that. Now, what I can do, and I think I sent it to Councilmember Kilrain in the past, is provide you a little bit more information on M-Plan, the structure of it, some of the assumptions and specific calculations that are used. But it is industry standard used across all economic development professionals and in place for this purpose, so that you have some idea of outside of the project, what type of impact it will create.
Thank you.
Can I just add on top of that? So this is just showing you the construction aspect of
Right.
that. There's another aspect that is the long range, jobs. But the same thing happened with Bimini Square, and you heard it kind of this morning about traffic. And the piece that a lot of times is overlooked by people who are concerned about traffic is by bringing the jobs here and putting the businesses on the ground here, we alleviate the traffic over the bridge. So every single resident in the Cape who uses that Lee Health facility today no longer has to go to Health Park or off of Metro, to utilize health services, to get MRIs or doctors or behavioral health or any of the things that they're offering down there. So you heard this morning, there was an assumption of the 900 units adding 1,800 cars, assuming 2 cars per unit. Well, you're looking at 2,200 direct jobs and 600 indirect jobs. That's 2,800 that don't need to go over the bridge. So even if you netted out and assumed everybody that stayed here drove across the bridge, you still have 1,000 less trips going over the bridge. But as Larry will tell you, or maybe I think he said it earlier, is a lot of the people that we have that are staying in our downtown area are walking to work. They're working at Lee Health. They're working at one of the restaurants. They're working at one of the retail shops. So you can't just assume all 900 units that are going to be a part of this project are going to be trips over the bridge or even trips on the parkway. The whole idea of creating the dense urban core is to engage a multimodal, transit network.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. My questions were answered. That's all.
Councilmember Lehman?
Yeah, Mr. Mason,
Yes, ma'am.
can you go back to slide 9? Go to slide 9 for me.
9 it is.
Where is it now? Okay. We've had a lot of citizens, I have, who have said we're giving away Four Freedoms Park. Now, you've said that Four Freedoms is still going to be called Four Freedoms, but if we are conveying Four Freedoms to the developer, essentially we are giving it away, are we not?
I wouldn't characterize it that way. If I was giving something away and it couldn't be used for what it was originally intended for, that would be one thing. In this particular case, there's a whole host of reasons why, if the developer is and the master association is going to be doing all the programming on the site, they should have underlying ownership of the site to program.
Okay.
Okay. So with that said, because of the restrictions associated with that particular parcel, it will always be a park. So I'm not giving it away for it to be something different. I'm
Okay.
not giving it away at all.
All right.
There's an exchange of property here that, I'm still going to be keeping some type of parkland down there, green space for.
Yeah, it's still gonna be a
Still
park.
parks.
Yeah, it'll still be a park, but the city
The city will not own it.
will not own it.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted that clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kilrain?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Councilman Darnell, I had really looked into the model in which they use to assign the value added and doing that calculation. And it's very flexible and it accommodates the type of investment you're making and a lot of parameters in there to hone in on what that impact would be for each type of thing. In this case, we don't know all of the specifics, but I think we know enough that we're in the right ball game with it. So I'm pretty comfortable with the way that they do that. And I looked at it a couple of times now. The portion about ownership on Four Freedoms Park or not, I kind of relate that since it's going to be a managed association going forward. One of the things that does, it ensures that will be properly maintained and managed through something that's not on the back of the city. So I would rely on that association to be disciplined and looking to always maintain that in a manner that generates the best income for them and also for the city. Overall, that relief of that burden, I think, is a benefit, an upside benefit, because we're not going to generate any income out of that unless someone else is using it and doing it. So I think it's probably a positive factor that's going with it. I mean, it's nice to own that land, but they're going to be paying property tax on that land, and they're going to be maintaining that land that we don't have to do anymore. And we're not in the business of owning land. We're in the business of, trying to operate a government. So I think that's probably a beneficial upside to it. One thing I did have a question about, you mentioned that the CRA comes to be sunsetted in 47. Is that by statute?
It's actually the agreement that we have with the county.
Okay.
But statutorily, best of my knowledge, we're not creating any CRAs anywhere in the state anymore. So they're all destined to sunset somewhere along the way.
And actually the tax refund terminates in 42. So we've got 5 years of clear tax benefit after that.
Correct.
That's straight run tax benefit. So I see that as a beneficial piece. I just want to bring that point home to other people. This is going to benefit the city for many years after 2042, and that continual basis will be there from a tax element. So even though we're seeding it up front to be able to make it happen, it would be no additional tax benefit to us if we didn't do this. We didn't invest that money. We'd seen nothing. So all kind of positives going forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple points, and one of them is about the park. Obviously, by turning it over to the developer, it assists the developer in things like their own internal financing and whatnot. They have a greater footprint, and I understand the coordination that then is involved with the maintenance of the park, the foliage that's used, the integration and landscaping between the other areas as well as the park, and then the ongoing maintenance. I would have a little bit of a concern considering the fact that this will be a very long-term affair, and the fact that most developers, when there is an association, end up turning it over to the owners that are in the association. Do we maintain any stopgaps, even though we might have deed restrictions that say this land must be a park? Do we have anything that says, but it also has to be maintained to this, level of decor or care, that type of thing?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. Right now, the developer has discussed it and intends on putting a community development district overlay over the entire site. And so that's for building up the infrastructure within the site. As part of that, the city will have a seat on the CDD board as part of our agreement. And however, the details that you're currently talking about would be further discussed and developed as part of the final developers agreement.
Okay, because I certainly would, to the point of whose park is it? The land will be conveyed, so it will be, but with a restriction that it must be used for this. But kind of the way I look at it, and I think all of us look at it, is it's the citizens' park, and to make sure that it's maintained properly and continues, to be a venue for them and kept up the way it should be kept up. I think we have to look decades down the road to make sure that stays in place.
We agree. And it's interesting that you should speak from that term, because as we were discussing the potential of either a signal or a roundabout at Coronado and
El Dorado.
Coronado and Miramar. I'm sorry. I just took a blank at Miramar. One of his questions to us is that, my experience with roundabouts is that the cities don't maintain the centers of them very well. And so, I said, well, I can't speak about every other city, but all I can tell you is that our intent is to keep it up. I would certainly hate to see it, fall into disrepair, because then we're back to a blight within that particular area. So I agree. And we will develop those terms as part of the developers agreement.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And my other point was on page 12, as it relates to the demolition grants. Obviously the simple math of 8 times 200 to get to the 1.6. With this being a long-term project, just a couple questions. One, will all the demolition happen right away, or will the demolition happen sequentially over time, over that 10-year period?
At least 5 of them will probably happen very quickly. But most of them, the banks and things like that, he's telling you right away.
Yeah, I would hope that, and that we acquired the property and went, it wasn't like we were going to make a promise to a developer, hey, when you do this, we'll knock these buildings down. We knocked them down right away and got rid of that, if you will, at least that component part of the slum and blight, just for the visual, appearance thereof. And another reason why I bring that up is certainly the cost of demolition will go up over that 10-year period in time. And so the 1.6 million, I'm wondering if the cap was still going to be on $200,000 per property, that would add up to 1.6, or is the cap 1.6 no matter how it's distributed amongst those 8 properties?
It's $200,000 per property. That's our current policy. That's the current policy for demolition. It's $200,000 per property.
Okay,
and so
great.
As far as the ones that are, he's going to have to develop the site. In order to develop the site, he needs to have a clean site. So, to be able to build it up to the 4 feet that he's talking about.
Well,
so our intent is to tear it down the moment that we own it, or as soon as, if there's any lease agreements or however long those take, and then we would do it.
Yeah, so for that $1.6 million commitment, for them to be taken down immediately, that sits better with me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Councilmember Long.
Thank you, Mayor. Trying to bring it back here to the numbers here. Appreciate you bringing this forward. This is kind of what I was talking about in the past for you guys to kind of connect it forward. We talked about the yacht club and how we kind of had the discussion with the shiny pictures, but didn't do enough of the money until it was time to pay interest on the debt. So here we are, and I appreciate that. But as someone that purposely got a liberal arts degree because I have an aversion to numbers, I'm trying to have you help me establish a baseline for my purposes in the price. So if you go to slide, I think it's 9. You talk about what we paid, which is the 42.5. And then we've got our subsection 7 is the purchase price, the 26,292. Obviously that I understand the delta. That's not my point. That figure, it says including the 4 properties discussed above. So that is inclusive of the 11 that we're paying that you itemized in section 4.
Correct.
Okay, so the 11 is swallowed into that. So then theoretically, well, not theoretically, in truth, we are into it. and we'll get to the next part of Intuit, for 45.2 by your figures plus 11.
Correct.
So we're at 56 million, and then you would subtract the 26.2 to get where
Get
we're
around
at.
the 18, 19, yes.
Right. And then if you really wanted to get cute, you could also add 1.6 to that, because that's also what we're paying on top of the 11 for the properties to get them in the value that we have to deliver it to them. Right.
Correct.
Okay.
But
Which I guess to me, I would have put that in the 11 million, but we'll separate it out. That's fine. And then, so these are the discussions I want to look at. And that's fine. I understand. I'm not even going to talk about what we spent versus what we got. That's not an ROI thing that I'm wanting to get into, but just for me to try to understand it. And then we're talking about when we bought the properties, did we pay cash for the properties?
We used commercial paper.
Okay. So we're paying, so it's debt.
We're paying interest on that commercial paper.
So then for me, we already talked about it in one of the previous meetings, but interest on that debt to me is something that we also factor into that. So then you compound that, because then we're eating this for 10 years before we get this 26. So whatever interest that is, and that figure based on what we paid versus what we didn't, is something to me I would also consider into this. So those are the kind of things that I want to look at when we talk about the numbers. I appreciate these are just, we're very early on. But that's the stuff that I consider. It's not just we're getting 26 for the property, and again, this is a council discussion down the road, I'm assuming, but if we get that 26 and then assuming we get it in increments as you described, is that money then immediately going back to pay off that debt that we're paying interest on?
Yes.
Okay. And then what that would look like, to get a larger picture long-term versus just numbers on the paper in the initial, when it's stamped, we're putting this money out. Where are we getting this extra 11 million that we would be-
Commercial paper.
Okay, so then we would be so it's not 11, it's whatever the debt is and the interest on that. So the numbers are more than what we're looking at, and it's not intentionally concealed, but these are the kind of things that I think are not traps, but situations that we fall into when we see this, and it's no fault of Mr. Mason because he doesn't have any of those tangibles right now. It's all perspective. And almost to their detriment, we say, let's go. And then we're here 2 years down the road when we're trying to pay for the commercial paper, sign off on it, and we're freaking out like we just did with the past discussions about the interest on that. And we wish that we talked about that when we originally had these discussions. So I only bring that to this council's attention to kind of maybe loop everything back around with some of my previous comments when we talk about the yacht club and we talk about the fleet facility. So I don't know about the rest of you, but those are things that I would also, in a different discussion, like to have some figures on. And that's my bit for now. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in here real quick. I kind of agree with Councilmember Long to some degree. The way I see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mason, so far we've spent $45.2 million for this endeavor. And we are currently holding commercial paper in that amount. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it sounds like if we purchase these other properties, we are going to incur an additional $11 million of expense for a total of $56.2 million that we actually have invested into this endeavor. And we are going to have to take that 11 million and have commercial debt for that as well, correct?
Correct.
And then at some point, since we know,
It'll be on a net basis, but close enough.
Yeah.
The overall amount that we're going to actually issue for debt is closer to $20 million, which is the net between the 56 and the 26 we're selling it for.
yeah, but we're not getting the 26 million for over 10 years.
No, but we would hold that in short-term paper. Yes, we would continue to pay interest on it, no doubt. All of it coming through the CRA.
Right, I understand that. But, how I look at it is the overall investment that we have on those properties, including 11 million, and taking into account over a 10-year period, we'll get 26.2 million back. We still have a $30 million investment on this endeavor. I think the interest is important. To factor that in as well to see exactly, I'm looking at, give me the total picture. It's kind of what I'm looking for.
Sure.
And I know on our one-on-ones, I think it's important for the next, 15 years or whatever the case may be. I need I would like to see what type of revenue we are forecasting to bring in with ad valorem tax over that period of time. Now, I understand a lot of it has to do what projects are done, when they're done, and when they're completed over those time periods. But what I'm trying to determine is if we're spending $30 million, how long is it going to take for us to get our money back, number one? And number two, the monies that we're going to make in those subsequent years. That way, if someone comes to one of us and says, okay, you're spending $30 million, how are we going to pay it back? When are we going to pay it back? And how much money are we going to make beyond that point? Then I can articulate a good argument of why this is a good deal. But I think we have to have those numbers some way so we can make that argument.
Sure.
And, I'm not saying that I don't think this is, a catalyst project for the downtown CRA, and I support it. But you have to put yourself in my shoes, or that one of the 8 of us. When the community comes and starts asking questions, we need to have some answers. And that's why we need to have that's why I need some of these numbers. So I think that's extremely important. I think it's important to try to provide that information so the community can see that. $30 million investment, that's a pretty good investment that we are using tax dollars for. Granted, we're getting a $500 million project. I realize and understand, and my line of work over the last 28 years, that's a good investment for us, not to mention the economic drivers, the jobs that it's bringing. But the bottom line, the average resident is going to say, you're spending $30 million. How are we going to pay it back? And when are we going to make money? It's a simple question like that. That's what we need to answer to, so we can make the argument that this is a good deal. We all may think it's a good deal, but we have to prove it's a good deal, because that's who we have to answer to. Since we're using tax dollars. So that's where I'm at. I'm fine with everything else on the terms. I just want I want the data so we can see exactly those parameters, so we can make a good argument when we're asked.
Okay.
Mark, can I jump in here?
Sure.
I want to take us back to the CRA discussion, because we quickly forget when we jump over here into.
And I know this is all paid through the CRA.
So when we do streetscape projects, or we do street lights, or we do medians, there is no return on that money. This expenditure for us with the CRA should be looked at just like those. The question should be, which I think is very appropriate to ask, and we'll make sure you have that, is, do we have a funding stream to make sure we can pay off our capacity on the short-term paper? And then when we convert it to long-term bond, do we have the capacity to do that? Because our role as the CRA is to assure the committee, the council, that we have the funding to do that. So let's just run a worst case. I was asked this week by Councilmember Donnell, what's the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is we enter into this development agreement, and in 25 years, nothing happens. That's worst case scenario. 30 years. I'm sorry, 30. The worst case scenario for us is we're in no greater or lost position than we are today. We just continue to pay the commercial paper for 30 years. That's the worst case scenario for us here. If they completely flop and nothing happens and we get the property back in 30 years, from a budgetary perspective, with some interest rate risk, obviously commercial paper has interest rate risk. That's what we're looking at, what we've been doing the last 2 years. And it's in your budget for next year as well. So we'll put together some analysis to show you that the CRA can make these payments and has the money. But as far as if you get asked questions about, are we getting a return on our investment? The CRA's role is not to get a return on investment in the trust fund. Our investment could literally have been with this, without all of this adding up to 50 million, it could have been, here's the land. Go build it. And we don't even need all this. And we would be in good shape. But we're not doing that. We want some controls so that, it looks good. We have, an idea of what it is. But it could have been as simple as the CRA saying, we're going to buy this, we're going to pay the debt service, and we're going to give it to developers to go do that. Thank you.
Yeah, and then lastly, just as a rebuttal, we're going to have debt at $56.2 million to start with. The other thing I would like to see too is to see how the CRA is going to pay the debt, what that's actually going to cost on a yearly basis. Because even though this is, a great project and one project, is it going to hinder us because of the budget burden that we're going to have? Is it going to hinder us in any way, with future projects? So, I'm not only thinking about this project. I'm thinking about, we had the CRA till 2047, whatever it is. So I'm looking long-term holistically. This is one great project, but I'm looking at that too. What's that going to cost us? How's that going to impact our budget? Those sorts of things. So I'm looking at that as well. Mr. City Attorney, I seen you had your light on. Did you still need to speak?
I just wanted to provide certainty and clarity regarding the park, so that there is no misunderstanding in the future. We are, as part of this agreement, the development agreement will transfer legal ownership of the park. I just want everyone to understand that. The surviving provision that is running with the land mandates and requires that it be open to the public for its use as a recreational area, and that shall be called Four Freedoms Park. So I just want everyone to be clear, we are giving up legal ownership as part of the development agreement, but it must remain open for the general use by the public as a recreational area, and it must be named Four Freedoms Park. So I just want everyone to understand that there's no misunderstanding or confusion on that in the future.
All right. Thank you. Before I go to Councilmember Kilrain, because I believe you've already spoken, Councilmember Kaduke, I don't think you have.
Thank you.
I'll go to you first.
So I had to jot down more notes. Mr. City Manager, you said the worst case scenario would be that we would pay for this for the next 30 years, right?
I was asked a question by Council Member Donnell. What's the worst case if they do nothing? If they do nothing, we have the carrying cost of the commercial paper and with the interest rate risk that, whether interest rates go up or down over that time frame. So it's the exact same budget viewpoint for us throughout the agreement if nothing happens.
But that led me to my next question, because I was assuming the commercial paper is held by the CRA, right?
No, the city holds the commercial paper. The city holds all of it. We have an interlocal agreement with the CRA. When I say we, the city has an interlocal agreement with the CRA. CRA has an interlocal agreement with the city that the CRA will pick up the full cost associated with the acquisition of this land.
Okay. So, that leads me to my next question. When you're talking about police impact fees and credits for this police substation that would be created through this agreement, CRA credit, city credit, it's a wash?
The impact fees are established by the city, not the CRA.
So city.
City.
Okay. So when the police substation is then open, it's funded by the general fund.
Yes.
Okay.
But at the same time, if we had built one where Fire Station 1 is built, it would be run by the general fund.
Right. But I just wanted it to be very clear that we're always saying, well, it's funded by the CRA, it's the CRA, but now it really is truthfully the general fund.
The impact fees are not the general fund. You're talking about the ongoing.
Well, I started with
ongoing
commercial
cost
paper and now I
of
moved on to the
maintaining
impact
it?
fees that are in
Yes.
this, just because I wanted to prove my point.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were talking about impact fees or not general fund. That's all.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So the RFP was due on 10/30, 2025. After that, have any other companies come to us at all interested in this project?
There have been no submittals.
No submittals, but have any other companies reached out
We've had-
interested?
Yeah, probably several. I mean, a lot of people have always talk about, we're going to submit, we want to submit, but we have received no submittals.
Has the city
And-
told anyone to not submit because they wanted to get through this process?
No. We have anybody that has submitted post-closure, we tell them that we cannot open the RFP because it's closed. And if they want to submit, they have to submit under the unsolicited P3 statute.
Okay.
So we provide them the mechanism to do that. And when they ask, what is the timeline? Alex always answers, as soon as possible.
To clear that up, the time, I want to make sure.
Something to that effect.
I always tell them that under the public-private partnership statute, the timeline is what is going to be controlled by them, not by us. So the more complete their package is for submittal will determine whether or not it would be sufficient for us to do a review of it to ensure that it is in fact consistent with what we have, not only pursuant to Florida law, but also what the city is actually looking to accomplish. So it's really controlled by the individual proposers. That's what I convey to them.
It's like J.C. Park. We put out the RFP, we got one proposal, probably got contacted by a dozen people saying, we'd like to submit, we want to submit. Unsolicited P3 is your route. The solicitation is closed and they don't submit.
But no city staff has told anyone, don't submit.
I can't, without asking every single staff member in the organization, I can't. I mean, you're asking me an absolute without knowing the absolute answer.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Laster.
Thank you. So I guess my concern, maybe kind of along the lines of what Councilmember Kaduke was saying, is the plan B. If this falls through, we don't have a backup, and that's my concern. And I know of another company that wanted to submit, because I had Sharon contact them and tell them, not to submit. And I understand why. They would have to spend $25,000 to submit. And if we're already further down the road with this, I understand it would be a waste. I mean, I guess, for me, my concern is that if we don't have a backup plan, then we're back to square one, and that takes more time. And wouldn't it behoove us to perhaps, ask for other submittals too, just in case this falls through? Not that I'm saying it is, because, the gentleman who spoke earlier presented a beautiful plan and obviously is solid and committed and investing in our city, which I'm very grateful for, but I just get concerned about a backup plan. The other thing I wanted to ask, Mr. City Attorney, just to clarify, you mentioned the park, and you said that it would have to be used for recreational for all the city. So in other words, it won't lose its Parks and Recs designation in perpetuity? Or because so if the park is part of the deal, does that park have to remain a park forever? Or in 30 years, can they change, the developer that owns it, can they turn it into an office building?
To answer the very last question, no, they won't be able to convert it to an office building. It must always remain as accessible to the general public for the purposes of our recreational area. And so the notion of a park, it just requires it to be named for Freedoms Park, but it must be open to the public and it must be a recreational area. That is a restriction that runs with the land, and neither this individual or any future individual will have the ability to nullify that restriction.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because that's very important, I know, to myself and many residents. And then what about the recreational, I think we just have, is there a school, that little daycare there or something? Will that go away then? I'm assuming
Yes,
the programs will go away that are currently there?
yes.
Okay. And then, Mayor, thank you for asking for that clarification, because you're absolutely right. We need to be able to show the cost and the figures. And I think that's all I had on my list for now. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Can I fill in some information? So I'm going to fill in some information with Sharon.
Okay.
I was in the meeting with Sharon with somebody that met with us maybe 6 weeks ago.
Mhm.
So after 8 months of negotiations with this group here, and in that meeting, we did not tell them not to submit. So I don't know where you're getting that from.
Wait, can I say something? It's not necessarily not to submit. It was more of you're already further down the road. And that company did reach out to me because they were confused. And I think where maybe we could have done better as a city, and just feedback if you want it or not, is we should have given them a definitive timeline. So like Mr. City Attorney stated, get it in as soon as possible. Like I would have said, get it in within the next 7 days, or just giving them clarity, because I think it left it wide open. So that company was very confused.
I have to respectfully disagree with you.
Okay, all right.
The
bring it.
RFP window closed. They had an opportunity, like the entire
8
free
months.
market society,
Uh-huh,
to submit.
okay.
They missed that window. They came to us about 6 weeks ago
Uh-huh,
and wanted to talk about, could we reopen a solicitation? And I said, absolutely not. We cannot.
oh, I see.
So they asked, how could we submit if we wanted to? And we said, you'd have to travel under the unsolicited P3 statute.
Mhm.
And then when they said, what is the time frame? There isn't one. There is no time for, it's whenever they want to.
So then they could still today, in theory, pay the $25,000 application fee and submit.
Correct.
But I guess the confusion is when they,
There was
maybe-
no confusion. They left knowing exactly how to proceed if they wanted to,
okay.
without a doubt.
I just think maybe we needed to clarify that time frame, and because I think the confusion is they received communication from the city saying that we were going to move forward and bring this development to the committee of the whole meeting. And so I think there was maybe confusion, like, because they thought, okay, well, it's a done deal. And I explained to them, I said, I'll have Sharon give you a call, but no, I mean, my understanding is you can submit, you're just going to have to pay that fee. And why waste that money? I said this to them, why waste that money? I would, see what the other development proposed, and then, see if council decides to move forward or not. And if we don't, then I would spend that money and submit that proposal. But, I'm not a developer. I just run nonprofits.
Councilmember Laster, let me see if I could provide you a little bit of legal clarity on that.
Okay.
It would be legally inappropriate for the city to advise a prospective proposer under the public-private partnership statute
Uh-huh.
to submit by a certain deadline. And the reason why that would be legally inappropriate is because by establishing a specific deadline by way of which they are to submit their proposal would essentially invite that individual in the proverbial doorstep. And then should that not be sufficient for our review pursuant to the statute, we'd be pulling that proverbial doorstep rug out from underneath their feet. And that would ultimately potentially have the ability of creating an equitable argument that we induce them to submit by a certain date. And then because we've induced them by a certain date, because we provided them that certain date, we then are somehow legally liable. That's why the unsolicited public-private partnership statute does not have a deadline. And that's why my words to them always, and I have a mantra that I speak to all these individuals, the speed by way of which you submit your proposal is dependent upon you and what you believe is sufficient for us to do a complete and thorough analysis of your proposal. And we do not control that timeline, nor do I mandate that it must be done by a certain time, because I do not want to expose the city to any potential liability by inviting them onto that doorstep.
Okay, that's fair. I guess maybe then the confusion may have lied with they were going to submit and then they were told not to, or no, that didn't happen. It's my understanding they were told recommended not to submit because we were already further down the road with this other.
I really can't speak to it. The one that I was
you.
at,
Sharon.
okay.
Thank you, Sharon. I just want to clarify this because it's confusing for me anyway, and I just want to make sure that we understand what exactly occurred with the other potential unsolicited bid.
At the
But I
time-
think it's important. We did not have an unsolicited bid,
Correct, we did not.
but that's not what you said.
It's
So
not.
we're comparing
Excuse me.
apples and oranges
Yeah,
here.
let me clarify. I guess I would like clarification on this potential unsolicited bid that had met with the city and what our communication was to them.
Yes, so I spoke with the gentleman who was interested in submitting. We were putting the package together and we had this scheduled for the Cal date.
Gotcha.
I explained to him how far along we were in this process and that he needed to be aware. I didn't feel that it would be forthcoming if he didn't realize that we were already on the path of submitting this to council to review this. I spoke with management, asked what the process was and the fee. There was a fee that was associated with it. I explained that to him. I was also advised that we would not be able to review, if he paid that fee, we wouldn't be able to review it in time and provide them with the presentation and the opportunity to present it to council before this one came through. So I just explained to him what the case was and let him make that decision. But I felt he needed to be aware.
No, and I appreciate that because that's kind of the same thing I said is why spend that money. So I appreciate you clarifying.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, I think it's important, we have an RFP process. We went through that. Anybody had the opportunity to provide a proposal. We all know at this point there was only one proposal. But once that RFP closed and then we started negotiating with the developer, as the city attorney recognized, there's still another avenue for a unsolicited bid to be submitted on this same exact project. To me, it's a simple question. Mr. City Manager, have we received a unsolicited bid regarding this project?
No.
That's it in a nutshell. I don't even understand why we're having this conversation, because it's all hypothetical, because we haven't received. Now, if we had received an unsolicited bid, I think then we should be having this conversation. But to sit here and say, what if, or it could have happened, to me, that's ridiculous. And honestly, it's an embarrassment probably to the developer. He did what he was supposed to do. And if somebody else either didn't submit during that time frame or they haven't submitted an unsolicited bid, so be it. If they do, then we'll have that discussion, but they haven't. So why we're even talking about that now is beyond me. Because the what ifs, we could sit here all day. It's already 2:45 and we're still on item number 1. We're talking about stuff, in my opinion, that has no bearing on this development agreement. If something else materializes later during the process and a unsolicited bid, then we can have that discussion. But why we're wasting our time now is beyond me. Councilmember Kilrain.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I don't know how many projects I've been involved in that there are a lot of interested people until they have to write a check. And be able to have the confidence to write that check says a lot for what you're going to do. And that's where we're at. These guys have a track record with us. They've proven that. We're working with them, and they had the confidence to put together the deal at this point in time. No one else is doing that, and no one else has done it. And I think that's where we're at. And I totally agree with the mayor on this. The other points I wanted to break, I think we have an obligation, I think, to explain this to the residents in terms that they understand. And I think that all of those conversations need to begin with what the role of the CRA is, and then maybe because people don't perceive that role to be, and they're always thinking of a payback and return on investment. Maybe to then get into the second conversation was, look, there are things that make this different, but from a return on investment, here are some things you might want to consider. And some of the things that you might want to consider are that commercial paper is the lowest route of funding that we can look at now to carry this forward. And it is going to be the lowest interest rate basis. And that the thing that we have to worry about with commercial paper is that we're not fully expiring our ability to further have a borrowing power or affect our rate on commercial paper. As long as the structures that we're into in comprehensive form don't exasperate what the tolerance is and change our rate, we're still okay with that. Now, that's not to say we just want to go out, throw money out there, but that's one of the critical criteria that we need to do. We get about a 14 multiplier on expended capital versus hard cash flow when we use commercial paper. That's the factor. We can actually experience taking on a mission that's 14 times larger economically than we can by doing it through hard cash flow. Then I would jump to the next point about hard cash flow. No matter to what extent this project gets completed, as long as it gets started, and we're seeing an appreciation of the asset value of that property, we're going to get benefits of tax incremental upon that. And the other point about that is any benefit that they're getting back in a tax refund basis, it's supported. And the numbers that Mason brought up before, the county's contribution versus our contribution, that just calculates out to be 37% of whatever money that they're being refunded. 37% of that is coming back from the county that we weren't putting in there, which is on the upside compared to other things that we get back from the county. So I think that first of all, again, I'm going to repeat, the obligation is to explain what the real role is of the CRA in developing these things, but then just rationalizing with residents who really look on return on investment basis. And that's kind of like something they're used to doing all the time, not trying to put in place policies to wipe out blight in the city, but to pick up on some of those to show the benefits that we have in doing this anyway. So that would be my process in which I would try to explain it. But I think it's important to realize that as we go through this, every time that an additional increment to that asset value goes there, that's going to appreciate over the years. So even though we're paying an incremental interest rate, we get the appreciation of property every year too that we're paying, so that we're benefiting from. So there's some of the aspects that I think that are going to help that explanation, but we still need the numbers to be able to explain it well. So thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Donnell?
Yeah, Council, I apologize for circling back, but three things just arose real quick. 3 quick points. Point number one, Councilmember Lehman, you had asked a direct question and it got framed as if I wouldn't characterize it that way, but it was really simple. Do we still own the park? Four Freedoms? No, because they said it in there. So no, we don't. It's to the developer, but as it was explained, the restrictions go with them, right? And they will remain a park, but we don't have any say so once it goes. Number two, I think this is great. Mayor, I understand the question, your thought, but anytime a council member brings something up, I think it's worth having the conversation. We're here because they brought it up, but I think it might be a moment for us as a whole just to look back, because you had me at hello. We have a process. When that RFP window closes, it closes. The question would have been to staff, has anyone, who has submitted? If they did not submit, then we move forward. I think that's what the mayor was saying. And just for reflection, maybe whomever, because I don't know, but I know my two peers up here, it was a concern. So I hear you. And I'm thinking, well, maybe that would be directed to have our staff get involved, because then that kind of puts, I see people as a middle ground, and that's not what we're here for with set policy. Just so for you, something for you to consider. Last point though, Councilmember Long, you know how much I pay attention, Mr. Mason. I really agree with you along with what we're saying. And as we move forward with city manager, because I just calculated some quick numbers. You know, I love numbers with the percentage on this commercial paper. Yeah, because that 45.2, that 11, just like on slide 8. Could you go back to slide 8? So just like we made those projections using this, whatever this thing is, NHAR, some here we could incorporate that 11 at a bare minimum. So that immediately, like we got 56.2, but just using 6.5% for the 45.2 for the commercial paper, that needs to be here. So now we have it, because that's not the intent. But what it seems like, if you're not paying attention, it's like we're trying to hide that other 13 million, which I know is not the intent, but you know, it gives that perception. So just something for you to consider as you move forward, because I understand exactly the process. Just something for you to reflect on. And I just wanted to add those 3 points, and I'm done on this issue. Thank you for listening.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you, Mayor. A quick question, and then actually a couple questions. And somewhere, and I can't find it, there was, I think it was called out that we were figuring the TIF funding at 95% of the increment. Is that right?
Correct.
And so what happens to the other 5%?
Stays with the CRA.
So the CRA can use it for anything, not necessarily this project.
Correct.
And so when we look at that expiring in 42 and the CRA expiring in 47, the thought of retiring the commercial paper debt, when we look at retiring that debt, we will have the 26 million that's being paid for the property, the 26,292, that'll help retire that debt. The rest of the debt won't get retired until we're in that 42 to 47 timeframe, where we're able to experience the entire increased value of the tax dollars created by the increased value of the property. Would that be right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what is it possible, legal and reasonable, to think that, because I think it would cause two effects. For that 95% to be reduced by the debt service that we're required to carry in commercial paper. So we'll credit back the 95% minus whatever the debt service is. It would seem like that would give incentive for them to help retire that debt with the 26,292 as quickly as possible, so that they got their additional TIF funding, and would leave us with a lesser amount expended over that period in time. Is that legal, and is that a potential for a negotiation point of the TIF funding that's given to them to reduce the cost to the CRA and cost to the city?
Actually, we did talk about that during the negotiations, and it all came back to the same response each and every time. They submitted a proposal at $500 million, and they needed $50 million in order to make this work. And so part of that contribution of the $50 million is the $45 million for the TIF, which is essentially rebating him back that which he's already paid.
And one other point, it's another thing that happens with these projects is we tend to look at them in a vacuum. What is this 33 acres going to generate? But as you heard from the appraiser, Matt, this morning, we're not just going to get the increase in the value from this project. What happens to all the surrounding areas is an increase in value. And so not even the 5% that's from within this one in-plan analysis or this one project analysis, we should be seeing a greater return across the entire CRA as the values of what starts happening down there pick up momentum and projects start happening. So it's no different than what you're seeing with the Cove and Madison Square and Bimini Square. We're seeing incremental value, and the surrounding property owners are now worth more than had none of these projects happened. And so we pick up TIF outside of the project itself as well. That can be used to continue doing more public works projects that get no ROI, that could be used to incentivize other, B2B grants, or that could be utilized, in more land acquisition and aggregation to then sell off.
Yeah, the $45 million is isolated to that site only. So anything that's outside of the CRA, and probably the best example to kind of give you about the change that will likely happen in the downtown area, not just because of the Cove as well as Bimini Square, or what this will actually generate in 10 years. It more has to do with what's the value of some of the CRAs that have already gone through transformational projects like this. Our overall revenues in our CRA today that come in from tax increment is about $7.5 million, $8 million. If you're going to talk about Boca Raton's, it's $54 million. If you're going to talk about the CRA for Tampa, it's $81 million. If you're going to talk about Orlando CRA, it's $97 million. This is what happens when we do a transformational project. We're not, the isolation of the $45 million is strictly on the 34 acres that that the developer is going to build on. When I take into account the remainder of the area and the potential changes that this particular project will have on all other values that will end up happening in that particular area, it will have a material effect. At the same time, we're going to have to take into account what might happen with November, because that's going to affect a very large portion of the CRA that surrounds the golf course. So all of that has to be taken into account as we're dealing with this, but the core part of the CRA is the majority of it is business related. And so that is going to be the catalyst, and this will be the change that will actually drive that. So 10 years from now, the value of the CRA that you're dealing with on an increment basis won't be $7.5 million. 10 years from now, it could be $20 million, $30 million. That value is what will end up paying back this debt right up through the term of 47. Because that's how the debt will end up being structured, is on 47. Plus, whatever it is that we're not selling, whatever land we're selling, that land will end up being on a taxable basis, so we're going to end up dealing with a taxable interest rate. The other part is on a tax exempt rate, so it's going to be a lower rate. It's going to be a fixed rate through 47. But the entire CRA will be paying back that particular value or the cost of that debt, because the entire CRA benefits from this development. Does that help?
It helps, although I'm trying to alleviate the wait for the return. The waiting until 47, because the rising tides lift all ships. So those properties surrounding there, when you look at their increased value and the additional dollars that come into the CRA, that will come proportionate to the stage at which that development is. The values of those properties are not going to lift the day that a shovel hits the ground for the very first building that is going to go up in that development. And so certainly that increase in the surrounding properties won't be at maximum capacity for what appears to be 10 years. The purchase price will be fully amortized in 10 years.
Correct.
I don't know that it says that the entire project will be complete in 10 years, but the 26,292 will be paid to us in that 10-year period.
Correct.
And so that is 2.6 million a year. If it were on straight line, we're at close to 2 million on the debt service on the commercial paper that we've got.
It's not 2 million. It's only on the interest costs, because the commercial paper is going to hold it when they actually purchase it from it. So we pay down a portion of it. So it's incrementally changed. We're not going to be paying the principal portion of it during this 10-year period. We're only going to be paying interest cost on it.
No, I get it, but that's close to 2 million. And I don't know what our commercial paper's at, but if it's at 4%, it's about 1.8 million per year.
Yeah, it's not 4%,
year.
but yeah, okay.
So yes, we'll be paying down the principal on the commercial debt every time we get a payment on the 26,292. I get that. It's the additional, it's the other 30 million that we've got out there at what our initial cost to begin this is. And so if there's some assistance in the cost of us carrying that debt for that long before we can experience any if you will, the return when the TIF runs out, that's what I was looking for. Just something to ease the pain along the wait way. That's all.
Okay, we'll talk with the developer and we'll try to figure something out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see, any other lights on. The only thing I wanted to say, just for clarity, to make sure anyone who's watching, and I know we've said this several times today, but I think it's important. This will pay, this particular endeavor, if we decide to move forward with it, will be paid for out of the CRA. And only the residents and the businesses in there within the boundaries of the CRA would be actually a portion of their taxes that's given back to the CRA will be paying for this, for this debt. So I think that's important to say because that's such a small majority of our city. That's 120 square miles. So I think that's important to continue to say. Seeing the other lights on, Mr. City Manager, I guess what you're looking for today is some type of direction, whether we should continue to move forward with a development agreement based on the information that we've been presented here today. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I know there's going to be some more specificity that'll have to come back at a later time. But what you're looking for today is just to continue moving down this path and working with the developer to bring back a development agreement.
Based on the term sheet that was presented today.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead. We'll go down the line, I guess. Why don't we start down here with Dr. D and you good?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Do we have any other choices?
Yeah, we do. It's called no. But all right. So looks like you've gotten the direction you're looking for, Mr. City Manager. I'd like to just say to Larry and your team, thank you for coming in today. I know it may have been a long day, but I think it was well worth it. And again, like I said before, thank you for at least choosing Cape Coral to invest in, and we'll all see where this ends up. So thank you.
I wish we treated for a good lunch at Pops. Coke.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and move on to item 2? Unless everybody okay? You want to take a 10-minute break? Everybody all right? We good? Okay. All right. Item 2 is the Art Center program presentation. I'll turn it over to staff.
Good afternoon, City Council, City Manager, and Mayor. I am Samantha Ann Ellis, Recreation Program Supervisor at the Cape Coral Art Center. I appreciate the opportunity to present today. The Cape Coral Art Center has been a community resource in Southwest Florida since 1977, located in Rubicon Park on Coronado Parkway in Southeast Cape Coral. The Art Center offers year-round classes for residents and guests of all ages and all skill levels in fine arts and fine crafts. No memberships are required for participation. The facility features over 15,000 square feet of well-equipped studios, a specialty art supply store, gift shop, a native butterfly and sculpture garden, and 2 fine art galleries. The Art Center welcomes an average of over 14,000 visitors annually, including approximately 13,000 Lee County residents and over 1,000 visitors from outside Lee County. demonstrating its role as both a vital community art center destination and regional cultural attraction. This program is a discretionary quality of life service that is not required by federal law, state statute, or local code. It is something unique that Cape Coral provides for our citizens. Before we dive into the details, I'd like to share a quick overview of our budget and how we put our funds to work. The Art Center enriches the community by making the arts an accessible and meaningful part of everyday life through classes, exhibitions, cultural events, and creative opportunities. We provide spaces where people can learn, connect, and grow. By fostering creativity and encouraging lifelong learning and creating welcoming experiences for people of all ages and abilities, we help strengthen the well-being of our community. The Cape Coral Arts Center fosters mental health and overall well-being by providing a welcoming space for creative expression, relaxation, and community connection. Participation in the arts has been shown to reduce stress, improve focus, and support emotional resilience. The Arts Center integrates these benefits through accessible classes, open studio opportunities, and community programming. Cape Coral Arts Center is more than just a place to make art. It's a place where community comes together. Whether someone is taking a class, visiting an exhibition, attending a workshop, or participating in a special event, the Arts Center creates opportunities for people of all ages and backgrounds to connect through creativity. The Arts Center is dedicated to making the arts accessible to everyone by providing high-quality, affordable arts education in welcoming and creative environment. Whether someone is discovering a new hobby, developing a new skill, or pursuing a lifelong passion, the Arts Center offers opportunities for community members of all ages to learn, create, and connect. During fiscal year 26, the Arts Center offered 330 classes and workshops across a variety of fine arts disciplines, providing opportunities to explore new mediums, refine artistic techniques, and express creativity. The Arts Center offers instruction across a wide variety of traditional contemporary art mediums, allowing students to explore multiple forms of artistic expression, including glass, jewelry, sculpture, drawing, painting, and more. The Arts Center provides structured, high-quality arts programming that fosters youth development, creativity, and lifelong engagement of the arts. Serving an average of 305 children each year, these youth and teen programs serve as a critical entry point into arts education, fostering the next generation of creative thinkers while supporting family needs and youth development across Cape Coral. The Arts Center is home to 2 gallery spaces that celebrate the creativity of local Southwest Florida artists and artists from across the southeastern United States. Our galleries provide an inspiring place to discover new talent, experience fresh perspectives, and support both emerging and established creatives. Through fiscal year 26 to date, the Arts Center has supported 204 artists and exhibited 643 individual works of art this year alone. The Arts Center presents 17 exhibitions each year, showcasing a diverse range of artistic styles, themes, perspectives through juried open call group and instructor exhibitions. These free exhibitions provide opportunity for artists at all stages of their careers to share their work while creating welcoming spaces that connect artists to the community through creative expression and meaningful engagement. Exhibitions include artist talks, demonstrations, offering insight into creative processes, and our free monthly evening receptions featuring live music, local artwork, and opportunities for the community to meet the artists and celebrate arts together. The Arts Center's Fine Art Supply Store supports both local artists and students taking our classes whenever possible. We stock material based on our instructor supply list, making it easy for participants to find everything that they need in one convenient place. Our inventory valuation averages over $85,000, reflecting our commitment to keeping the store well-stocked with quality supplies that inspire creativity and support learning year-round, with an average annual sale of over $84,000. The store continues to see steady community support and consistent demand for art material. The store carries a wide selection of fine arts supplies, including acrylic, watercolor, oil paints, brushes, pottery, clay tools, jewelry making supplies, fused glass materials, and many other essentials for artists of all skill levels. The Arts Center plays an active role in bringing public arts to life throughout Cape Coral by working closely with artists, the Community Redevelopment Agency, and community partners, the Art Center helps transform creative ideas into meaningful works of art that enhance the public spaces and create places where residents and visitors can connect. Staff assists with key aspects of the process, including artist outreach, facilitation of selection processes, coordination of materials and logistics, and ongoing communication between stakeholders. Public art does more than beautify a space. It tells the story of our community, celebrates local culture, and creates a welcoming places where people can gather, explore, and take pride in their city. The Art Center is proud to collaborate with a diverse network of community organizations that help expand the arts education, cultural programming, and public engagement. Long-standing partnerships with organizations such as the Southwest Florida Fine Craft Guild, the Southwest Florida Glass Bead Makers, Cape Arts Network, and the local Coast Guard Auxiliary support exhibitions, education opportunities, workshops, scholarships, demonstrations, and community events throughout the year. Together, our community partners help foster a vibrant, inclusive arts community that benefits the Cape Coral residents and visitors. Thank you. I'm available for questions as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Manager. Was this presentation for informational purposes or is some direction you're looking for today?
No, it was informational about a program that we offer through Parks and Rec and to give the community an idea of all the things that are done by our great staff and give them an opportunity to let you know who they are and what they do.
All right, thank you. Dr. Councilmember
That
Donnell.
is a great segue, Mayor. You have no idea. And my comments are going to be the fact that up here, for a person like me, a left brain person, like 130%, I know it's not possible. It's all about analytics, problem solving, critical thinking. Know the mayor say, what's the objective? That's kind of how we live our lives. But just wanted to say to you, there's another side. And my wife had to teach me that because she's the right side for the creativity part and just having spaces for people to do things that will never really make it in this forum, but are critically important, just as the other side is. So thank you for what you do, and I'm definitely a supporter. So thank you, Mayor. And we didn't practice that. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and I appreciate the information. And I've been to the Art Center. It's a vibrant place. They just redid the walkthrough there not too long ago, and it's a very cool amenity, especially in the southeast part of our Cape. But I think the thing that is at least needs to be acknowledged is it's something that the city has done to accommodate those that would want that type of amenity and certainly to contribute some dollars towards that and provide incentive and to make it more cost effective for people to be involved in it. I think is a great thing. On your slide, I believe it's number 4. When you take a look at what the actual revenues of that amenity have been, and the way that the city has subsidized the way that it has run, when we're considering budgetary issues and where we can afford to contribute, where we need citizens to contribute more. When I go down to your page 8, the thought that the average facility like this, what it costs to do certain things when a citizen in other cities would go to an amenity like this. When you look at the reduced amount that the Art Center has charged to make it more affordable for folks, but would you say that is one of the things that might be at risk then as we look at this? If we want to maintain this amenity, we may be looking to the citizens to pay more of the, if you will, the market cost for those types of programs than the reduced rate that they've been paying based on the amount that the city has been able to contribute towards it.
Yes, we do increase our prices. Annually, we review them and we compare other facilities, as this slide shows, as well as what our expenses are. And yes, we may have to increase more, especially depending on what happens in November. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just, because when I look at the support level from that first chart, and then I look at the difference between what the market rates, let's call them market rates are, and what we've been charging there, they're very close.
Yes.
They're very close. So it's just a corollary that I saw in those two, with the thought of November coming, to think of, when people think about developing more revenue sources, and they're afraid of, fees and assessments and things like that. It may not be in the form of a fee or an assessment, but it may be in the form of pricing something to where it's at market, rather than pricing it at a discount to make it more affordable for people.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item 3, area-wide neighborhood roadway speed limit study. And I will turn that over to staff.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Council. Laura Dodd, Principal Transportation Planner and Public Works. Give me a moment to pull up the presentation, please. So what you have before you is a request for direction from City Council for a potential policy initiative. As background, the area-wide neighborhood speed limit reduction study was commenced around the time that we completed the multimodal transportation master plan. The speed limit reduction study was part of the 5 top priority projects for evaluation to integrate into a multimodal system. A summary of the whole presentation can really be provided in this one slide. This is a policy decision to reduce the likelihood of serious injury or death relating to speed on our local roadways. From this chart, you can see that the dangers associated with speed-related deaths exponentially rises contingent upon the speed traveled. What is being proposed today is a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. As background, we've researched and determined that higher vehicle speeds significantly increase the likelihood of serious injury or death. It also increases the driver's reaction time and braking distance, as well as higher speeds reduce a driver's field of vision. The goal for providing this information is to reduce the risk of death and injury through implementing policies that support safer speeds and tracking those outcomes through measurable performance metrics. So what this boils down to, and as it relates to Cape Coral, are 2 different items. Item number 1 is an evaluation of how effective speed limit adjustments are alone. From studies that we've reviewed, we found that there was positive to mixed evidence. However, as a point of consideration, these are most effective when paired with complementary measures such as enforcement and driver education programs, which are also proposed as part of this program. The second item is pedestrian vulnerability in residential areas. And what this means to Cape Coral specifically is, if you look to the graphic to the right of the slide, you could see that individuals are using roadways as an extension of their front yard when there are not additional facilities that exist, such as sidewalks on local roadways. With Cape Coral being predominantly local roadways, the cost to construct sidewalks on every local roadway would be astronomical, somewhere in the billions with the B. So that being said, what you're looking at as it relates to Cape Coral is a pre-platted community that lacks sidewalks, and individuals are using some of the public infrastructure as extensions of their front lawns. And what this does is it seeks to prioritize pedestrian safety in these areas by making speeds more manageable for drivers' reaction times and many of the other items that I've just listed. And what this does is it dramatically reduces that severity of injury or death. We've been here before, so I'll say that one more time because it got a reaction. We have been here before. The last time this was presented to you all was in 2016, and it did not fail because it did not have support from PD due to enforcement concerns. You will see later in this presentation, we do have a memo of support from PD for this program. So just as I briefly touched on the background for this initiative, this was proposed 10 years ago, 2016. It did not pass due to police support. In 2023, with the integration of the Multimodal Transportation Master Plan, as I said, this is one of the top 5 priority projects that was derived from that plan. We started the required engineered study to do an area-wide analysis. And that brings us to today, 10 years later. As part of the analysis, we did incident sampling of the incidents that occur on local roadways. You can see from the charts on the right that compared to the state of Florida, Cape Coral slightly lags as far as severity of crashes that are occurring. So in other words, we are trending just below the state, not too different from the state, but slightly in a safer bubble as far as the severity of the crashes. And how that relates is we have around 390 centerline miles of major roadways, which accounts for the majority of the crashes, or 12.76 crashes per centerline mile. However, we have 1,250 centerline miles of local roadways, by and large, the bulk of the roadways that are traveled. And that equates to around 0.4 crashes per centerline mile of local roadways. Looking at how that relates year over year on a 5-year trend, you can see from the chart at the very bottom right that we are still trending in the positive. So incidence and severity are both trending up, not dramatically, but they are in fact increasing year over year annually. Looking at just those crashes on local roadways, what you're seeing on the map is we pulled apart criteria where speeding was the cited contributor. It includes bicycle or pedestrian, lane departures, and also distracted driving as catalysts for the incident. And then we took it one step further and looked at some of the environmental criteria and also policy criteria. Now, I don't want this chart to jar you. I know some of you have seen this before, but there are environmental criteria associated with cities that are out of our control or set the city apart from some of our closest neighbors. So when looking at this chart and considering that criteria, where I would want us to be trending is closer to those communities that have a similar urban fabric to our own, those being areas like Port St. Lucie or Deltona, which are pre-platted communities that have a comparable urban fabric. So where I would like to see us trending as far as policy and environmental criteria is around that range on the chart. You can see that other communities may have, you might consider, a leg up over Cape Coral because they do not have as large a geographic area, or they are not pre-platted communities, which does impact the response times and the number of incidents. But as far as the policy criteria that was evaluated as part of this, there is room for improvement that shows that policy is lagging. As mentioned previously, we did seek a letter of recommendation from PD, and they have provided that they do recommend approval of the 25 miles per hour speed limit reduction plan and that their enforcement resources remain the same. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Ian with Kimberly Horn is going to discuss the engineered analysis.
Thank you, Laura. Ian Reardon, traffic engineer with Kimberly Horn Associates. I'm the one that prepared the study. So what you've got on the screen here is, as part of the public outreach process, we created a GIS-based website that we could send the public to. So if they had any concerns about any roadways in the entire city, they could go to that map on their phone, tablet, computer, zoom in on any area and drop a pin on any of the roadways they had concerns with, and then type out what their concerns were. Then when we got back to the office, we could look through all those concerns and categorize them, which is what you're seeing there on the right side of the screen. So from what we got, we had 466 comments over our just over a month and a half, or sorry, 2.5 months of collection that we did. That was from February through April of earlier this year. Most of the comments did detail speeding. You can see between local road and major roadway speedings, over 250 of the comments were related to those two things. Some of the other things they talked about was just traffic cutting through their neighborhoods to get around some of the more congestion along major roads, driver disobedience being anything from cell phones in their hand to distracted driving or just disobeying stop signs as they're going through neighborhoods, and then safety, traffic calming, and just some various other things along the way. So with that being said, we also did kind of break this down into charts there of all the comments we got, which is the chart there on the top, and then just the local and neighborhood roads. That really was part of this, though, those lower speed roadways. And so that's the bottom chart there. And you can see on the bottom chart is that speeding accounted for just under 50% of the current concerns that people had on those local roadways. So now into what we actually did for the study. By Florida statute, if a roadway in a municipality does not have a posted speed limit, it's going to be 30 miles per hour. And if you want to change that, there has to be an engineering study done. And so that's point 2 on there is like, well, what can a municipality do? If the municipality wants to set the speed limit at 20 or 25 miles per hour, we have to go through a defined process from the FDOT speed zoning for highways, roads, and streets manual. In that manual, it basically says, go out and take some traffic counts and compare them to these thresholds, which I'm going to walk through. And if you meet the requirements, then you can go ahead and lower the speeds in those areas. And this last bullet point there is, for the purpose of the study, we were looking specifically at local roads within neighborhoods. We were not looking at the arterials, the collectors throughout the city, and we were not looking within private neighborhoods. This is all city-owned roadways. So the first thing we did was we went out and we collected counts, or we collected speed data. So that map there on the screen shows you 40 different points that we collected throughout the city. We tried to get every quadrant of the city to make sure we were getting a wide swath and is representative of the entire city. We didn't want to concentrate on any particular area. And then as far as the roadways that we're looking at, this is just a few shots here from Google Street View showing what we're encountering in the neighborhoods. Generally, all 2-lane roadways, neighborhood streets, but generally no sidewalk. You can see in the pictures there, the picture in the bottom left along Southwest 28th Street does have sidewalk on one side, but that was kind of few and far between. Mostly we had no sidewalks, which means that people were walking in the streets. People were having to use their bikes in the streets, whether they wanted to or not. And as you saw in some of the pictures earlier in the presentation, cars were parking along the roadway and kind of obscuring some of the vision as you're going along the street of driveways and people walking along the streets. Now, what are the things that we're looking for? We're looking for 2 different things when we're doing these speed counts. The first is 85th percentile speed. And honestly, the easiest way I can say that is if we counted 100 cars, at what speed were 85 of them traveling at or below? So in this case, we were looking at, are they traveling 25, 28, 30 miles per hour? And however many 85 of them were traveling at, then that was our 85th percentile speed. The next is 10 mile per hour pace. That's a little bit different here. It's really, we're looking at buckets of speed, right? So if we say a bucket from 5 miles an hour to 15 miles an hour, a bucket from 15 miles an hour to 25 miles per hour, and so on, which bucket actually holds the most amount of people? And so those are the 2 criteria that we looked at with the data to then compare it to the state criteria. So there's 2 conditions now that we can use to look at the posted speed limit. The first is we compare the 85th percentile speed and the top end of that 10 mile per hour pace. And that needs to be within 3 miles per hour of the posted speed limit, or what you're looking to potentially post it at. So in this case, we were looking at posted at potentially 25 miles per hour. So our collected data need to show if the traffic was traveling at 28 miles per hour or less. Condition 2 is it gives us a little more leeway. It says if there's certain conditions on the roadway that may warrant additional study here, things that may distract the drivers, or if we're trying to meet some sort of classification, then we can actually expand that a little bit more and we can go to 8 miles per hour. So again, so if we're looking at posted 25 mile per hour speed, we could go all the way up to 33 miles per hour of the traffic that we collected in the field. So that being said, what do we see? What were the results, right? Looking at that, of the 40 locations that we collected at, 38 of them met the criteria of either condition 1 or condition 2 for posting the roadway at 25 miles per hour. And if we averaged out the 85th percentile speeds for all 40 locations, and we averaged out the upper limit of the 10 mile per hour pace for those 40 locations, you can see that the upper limit of the 10 mile per hour pace was 27.9, just under the 28. So this allows us to say, for the community, for the municipality, we can meet the criteria to post the speed limit at 25 miles per hour. So with that being said, I'm going to turn back to Laura to talk about some of the options associated with changing it to 25 miles per hour.
Thank you, Ian. So what you have before you is a decision point. I believe you all received a decision packet to assist you with your recommendation. And I would like to pause and request council's direction and appetite before moving forward into the other optional provisions or selection of implementation.
Thank you very much for the presentation and the information. Councilmember Donnell?
Yeah, I apologize, council, for blurting out that was rude, but I just remembered, some things you just think, duh, that's a no-brainer. But I remember we had this conversation even before 2016 and I know some of you all have young kids, all right? And at the time I had my kids were younger, and to lower a speed limit in the residence, duh, just a no-brainer. And I just remember it was just packed in here. And the one comment I remember as vividly was, well, it's not going to have any effect because those that follow the law are going to continue to follow the law, and those that break it are going to continue to break it. And I remember council voted it down, or we didn't move forward with it. I just remember that, and I was like, are you kidding? And before somebody else out there says, there you bozos go again, paying all that money for a study, because we already know that people drive too fast in the community. So I'm just letting you know, been there, done that. So for us, I would love to further this. They drive too fast. People drive too fast, and sometimes people that would follow the direction. So we had to do this. Now we have the study again. So I'm for, but I'm just saying to you, if we decide to move forward, stand by, because it's not as, it's just not as simple as you think. For me, I'm good with it. Oh, and I want to end with this. I will say to you all out there, because I drive the speed limit. You know that little sign that says 35 or 45 or 70? I'm one of those people that actually drive that speed in the right lane. So stop running up behind me, bumping your horn. I'm sorry, I was having a moment. All right, that's all. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate Councilmember Downell, all the decisions that your previous councils made, because it makes it easier for us today. So I just wanted to appreciate that. But, for me, this is pretty simple. We want to make sure we have a safe community. We got kids running around in our communities, riding bikes, playing basketball, just a multitude of things. And we're a little unique because a lot of our residential communities do not have sidewalks. And I think that's an important aspect to recognize. For that reason, I'll support this initiative. When you look at the cost, to me, it's very minimal difference between the three options. But for me, if we're going to do it, let's do it. And I would support option one. Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm data driven, and I was trying to understand the data. And if you could go back to number 7. And when I look at this, I had to kind of figure out, because the pie chart up there is in percentages, and then to come down to the bar graphs and look at how many were just injuries, how many were serious injuries, how many were fatalities, and I think about 2020 to 2024. And then going back to the local 506 crashes, where'd that come from? Well, you have actual numbers of incidents down in the bar graph. You have percentages up in the pie graph. No, page 7. There we go. So the pie graph is percentages. down in the bar graph, that's actual numerical data, not percentages. And then I just thought about in that 5-year period, we had an increasing population driving those streets. And what it appears to be is a decreasing number of fatalities and a decreasing number of serious injuries. And so then when I look at the amount of area that we're dealing with, and in my talks with staff, what we're dealing with is what Councilman Donnell mentions, is just behavior. Those people, that they either follow the rules or they don't follow the rules. And I got to believe, because what this data doesn't reflect is, were these injuries at these speeds, were they breaking the speed limit when it happened, or were they driving the speed limit? And even though they were driving inside of that 30 miles an hour, this happened. Or were they doing 35, 40 miles an hour on the neighborhood street? And that's what caused the injury and the incident and whatnot. So we don't have that information. But like the mayor said, it's relatively small money. But if we want to say that we did something about it and we invest the $50,000 in changing signs and change the speed limit, without enforcement and the people that don't pay attention to what the speed limit is, regardless of what it is, I don't think we're going to change the result that much unless there is additional enforcement that says, and education of the public, hey, it's 20 now. It was 30, now it's 20. And the one, and the 18-year-old kid that does 60 miles an hour down the street anyway, whether it's 30 or it's 20, they're probably still going to be doing 60. So I can certainly be in favor of it, but and you said that police has agreed with this. I would hope that police is also intending on applying some additional enforcement, education and enforcement, because that's what's going to change our results, is the change in behavior. And bad actors tend to be bad actors, whether it's 30 or it's 20. So that I can certainly support it. Although we need law enforcement to enforce what we have, and certainly when we go to 20.
Understood.
All right, Councilmember Lehman.
Yeah. Laura, can you go to slide 16 for me, please?
25.
All right. Yeah, maybe it was 17. I'm sorry, I lost. Define with the 3 options that you had. Option number 2. There you go. Define neighborhood gateway for me.
It is the threshold by which the speed changes. So in other words, it's the transition from a major classified functional roadway to a local roadway, where it steps down in intensity from major roadway to local. So that defines a neighborhood's threshold.
Okay. As much as there are going to be a lot of citizens jumping up and down at this, you can lower the speed limits all over the place. People don't follow them. And to expect, the police can't be everywhere all the time. And when I say citizens are going to be upset, the cameras the license plate readers, I think would make a lot more sense. And I realize, yes, you're talking an additional cost, but I know, for example, the street I live on, it's a straight street. And it's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Well, if you lower it to 25, basically it isn't going to make a damn bit of difference, because we have people who go 50. They think that's normal. And they fly through there to the point. Now, no, we've been very lucky. There haven't been any accidents. However, People's sidewalks, their grass is being driven over, mailboxes are being taken out because it's a narrow road. It's only 24 feet wide. And when you get, a truck and a car going two opposite ways, one is going to give, and God forbid any of them should stop and let the other one go through. That just doesn't happen. I've been caught that way myself. And so they drive over things. And then with this whole situation with changing speed limit signs, and I know, Matt, you're going to love me for this one, but we have, and Laura, you've heard about it too. We have one citizen with the curve. This man's sprinklers, his grass, his mailbox have been taken out 5, 6, 7 times, and lowering the speed limit isn't going to make a hell of beans. It's not going to change it. In addition to the lowering of the speed limit, I'm wondering if no left turn and no right turn signs would also be effective, and that if that could be incorporated in this. Is that a possibility? I know, I'm making you
Good
all
afternoon, Bill
crazy.
Corbett, Public
And
Works.
you all know who I'm talking about.
So I would envision that type of exercise to be mutually exclusive from this type of exercise. So what we're looking at here is really a speed zoning issue. And what you're talking about is restricting movements, looking at lane assignments and different analyses that would dictate those types of restrictions of specific movements, different types of vehicles on roadways, different classifications of roadways, various geometric constraints. I don't think that the data that was derived from this study would be able to identify the changes that would be necessary that you're recommending.
Okay. So basically, this is just a speed study, period.
Currently, most of our roads are local roads are 2-lane, 2-way roadways, undivided. We don't have a lot of one-ways in the city. We don't have a lot of restricted turning movements. We do have a grid laid out transportation network. It's conducive to all turning movements. That's why we would need to look at a site-specific constraint that may require prohibiting a specific movement.
With this site-specific one that I'm talking about.
Right. So regarding,
we've beat a dead horse on it so
Sure.
many times.
Sure, we've discussed this one previously, absolutely.
Many
So
times.
with the Southwest 28th, I think it was identified that if we were to restrict turning movements from the gentleman's street, we would shift that problem to another street. And so it's 6 one-way, half dozen the other, if you will. And I know the city manager met with the gentleman on site. We've had various meetings, and then it resulted in us presenting the traffic calming policy and program, which was previously presented to council. So, at this point in time, we could take a look at that one again and do some data collection to see if there is a reason why we, other than pushing the problem elsewhere, if there's a reason or a constraint why we should or should not restrict the turning movement, we could take a look at that, but it would not fall under the parameters of this study.
Oh, okay. Well, Mr. Mayor, with reducing the speed limits, if you think the study, Laura, if you think the study would help, and I think
it comes down to best practices and what we can prove. And what we can prove is that speed limit reductions are best when coupled with other characteristics such as increased enforcement or education. You will see me get into those two coupled behaviors later in the presentation.
okay, I think education's going to be a big thing.
Mhm. To your point, there will always be bad actors that are going to break the
tell me
speed
about it.
limit regardless. Your points are well taken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I jump in there?
Sure.
All right, so that's a good question, right? Laura, do you think this is going to help? Unlike most policies that come before you all that have a defined outcome that is concrete, can you go to the summary slide, my favorite one for this entire discussion. What we're discussing with you all this morning is a risk management policy. So at 40 miles an hour, you're at an almost always deadly accident. At 30 miles an hour, it's about a 50-50 chance. At 20 miles an hour, it's almost always survivable. So what's before you today is, do you want to reduce the risk, reduce the likelihood of the outcome should there be an accident in a local neighborhood? It's not about, do you want to stop speeding? Do we have a speeding problem? It's, do you want to have a policy that reduces the risk in our community for the outcome should an accident happen? That's what makes this so different than most of the other things we talk about. Do you want to develop a sidewalk? Do you want to, increase staff and produce more output? This policy, this discussion is a risk management discussion. And what do we want to have our policy statement be about the likelihood of outcomes should there be an accident in our neighborhoods? And although this is only focused on pedestrian-related incidents, I had a discussion with a council member yesterday about, well, don't forget about the child's dog who sneaks out underneath the fence. There's other unreported fatalities that happen due to speed in our neighborhoods that happen as well. So it's really a risk management. What do we want our policy to be about the likelihood of the outcome? Thank you.
Councilmember Kilrain.
Yeah, based on the fact that we have a lot of non-sidewalk streets, and I know myself, I'm a little bit different than Dr. Darnell and his driving habits. I tend to push the limit a lot. I don't want to say that too loudly in front of everyone here, but I do. I would very much support this. I think that just the fatality incident probability being reduced by this makes it something worthwhile to look at to protect our residents in a manner of safety, total safety, and I think it's a good measure. I think it will end up curbing behavior, and that will be through the enforcement end of it too. And I'm going to use this as a bootleg here for another end run. And in that, I've taken lead in looking at trying to get cameras on school bus for our charter schools. In addition to that, I brought up a couple times about putting red light cameras up. And again, just directed directly at the safety component. And I'm led to believe and have everything that I've read about it, and it is behavior modifying to have those, and very effective. And I would like to be able to confirm that, and maybe I would ask for our chief to maybe ask if he would mind participating in some kind of evaluation to see if there might be some substantial supporting that it is a very positive safety measure to look at doing something with the red lights too. So not only would I support this, but I'd ask maybe if we could consider putting together a study or some evaluation as to and a benefit for red lights cameras. So thank you. And I'll bring that forward maybe later on, Mayor, if I could lead on that too.
Councilman Long.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I would agree with Councilman Donnell. I think taking those comments to heart, this to me is pretty straightforward. I support it. But in the sense that, in true Cape Coral Twilight Zone fashion, I foresee a room full of people, right, here to fight for their right to speed on neighborhood streets. And so to that end, I want to make sure I've got a grasp of the data that we're hopefully presenting to them in defense of or justification of our position. In the memo that I have in the backup material, it references that 189 comments as far as the public input session, and this is, I guess, for either of you. 189 comments that were for local roadway speeding were reviewed to determine the roadways which had the highest occurrence of comments. In total, 84 different neighborhood streets throughout the city were mentioned. It should be, here's the emphasis, it should be noted that approximately 94% of neighborhood streets received less than 5 comments. Although speeding concerns among neighborhood streets were widespread throughout the city, the comments showed an emphasis on 6 streets that made up approximately 38% of the local roadway comments. Can we, I mean, it sounds to me, and I understand those are just the people that showed up and the people that provided input, and those are traditionally skewed, like we saw with the Pine Island Road as far as the Mountain Shea resident. But can we, it's just when I look at this and we have something in the context that shows, well, a lot of the people are really complaining, unless I'm misreading it, about these 6 specific streets. How are we then getting to say, well, we've got 6 that are, our data, of course, shows something different, but as far as public input, we've got 6 that are really a thorn in everyone's sides. So to play devil's advocate, if they show up and they say, well, there's really only 6 bad actors, why are we doing the other 900 something signs? How do we get there?
Sure.
So
I'm not saying I subscribe to that, but just because we will get people.
Yeah, no, understood. So when we're looking at the data, and we showed that the 85th percentile speed was 28 miles per hour or less for all of the locations that we did. Generally, what we think of with the 85th percentile speed is that is what the general public is comfortable driving at on the roadways, based on all the geometrics, based on their comfort level with how wide the road is and things along the side of the road. So what we were seeing is that 85% of people are already driving below the 30 mile per hour speed limit. So, the majority of people are already driving under that. But what we can look at is if we can lower that when the data supports going from 30 to 25, there are still going to be people who are driving today at 28, 29, 30 miles per hour that are doing it because they are rule followers and they're following the rules. They're now going to lower themselves even more and get themselves down to 25 to still follow the rules, which then increases the likelihood of surviving the crash like was noted earlier. As far as these streets, and specifically these 6 streets, we're not trying to say that there aren't comments everywhere else. It's just that it happened to be that these 6 streets may be seeing the outsized portion of people who are speeding in excess of that 30 miles per hour. And that's why people are concerned. One of the things we got from the public when we talked to them is that there's a few roads out there that are being used as cut-through roads. So traffic wants to go 40 miles per hour on the major arterial that is allowed to be 40. They can't. So they cut over one block. They speed down the neighborhood road to bypass all and then come back. That was kind of where we were seeing some of the comments come back, because people were saying that their neighborhoods are being used as a bit of a cut through. And those are outliers in relation to the entire thing. But this study was trying to look at how can we keep residents across the entire city safe.
Gotcha. So I think, yeah, that's great. And that's the information that I was looking for. I think those other 6 streets is a discussion for another day, because regardless of what sign is put up, I think there's going to be some traffic calming stuff or whatever that we'll have to address down the road. But
Just wanted to add one thing to what Mr. Reardon said. He said that when the signs are changed, a lot of those drivers will still be driving at 28 miles an hour.
Sure.
So he talked about the technical, I'll talk about the psychological. Traffic engineering is a psychological exercise as well. People drive a certain way based on their surroundings. When the neighborhoods in the north build out, the speed limit, the prevailing speeds will reduce. You'll see as homes get closer, cars are parked in driveways, kids are outside playing. That's when you'll see the shift. And so if nothing changes geometrically on the road and it is just the sign, sure, you can argue that, the day before and the day after, you won't see much of a change. Long term, you'll see a cultural shift. You'll see the city grow. You'll see the city get more dense in those neighborhoods. I'd venture to say, I haven't looked at the 6 roads that you mentioned, but I bet a good portion of them are up in the north, where it's a little less dense than down south and people are driving faster. So just wanted to point that out, that there's a little bit more than just the technical data behind it.
awesome.
Thank you.
Mr. Corbett. And then switching gears very quickly, as we are getting late in the day, the cost portion. If you want to go back to your kind of decision point slide where we've got the, in those materials as well, it mentions the figures themselves that were presented, at least one of them, was notated that the estimations for city installation only and does not include approximately 3 to 4 months to secure a contractor for labor and the costs associated with outside labor.
Correct. So that is city labor only, no outside labor. I can tell you by contrast, as it relates to cost efficiency, a sister city where we did this exact same thing, the cost was upwards of $1 million. So you can see it's dramatically different in our.
That's where I'm
case.
concerned. So I guess we would need to condition our approval. I know it's a cow, but if we wanted to move forward based on these figures, it would be with the understanding that the city could actually implement the plan that's being proposed for a relatively close approximate to these prices. I mean, you look at, and I don't know how, and that's another discussion I don't want to get into, but 57,000, there's like, what, 900 signs, and even under one of the proposed scenarios, you drop it down to 503. And then I think I look at the timeline and it's like 12 months to implement. I mean, if we had one person assigned to it, surely they're making more than 57 in the salary. So where do we get that figure from? I don't know. I just worry about the creep when we look at these. It's too good to be true, the cost, if that makes sense.
I understand. I confirmed on 2 separate occasions the cost and the labor associated with this in-house. So this was over approximately 3 months of working with our sign shop and the supervisor there, as well as PD, to come up with some of these figures. When I did the final calculations based upon what they provided me specifically, I was shocked, and the rest of staff can probably attribute to that I vocalized this is substantially lower. And my takeaway from that was not necessarily, is this wrong? It was, I wish I'd done it this way before.
Sure. Yeah, and I don't want to be cynical either, but I just don't want to be in a situation down the road, where we look and now we've got a consent item where we're approving $1 million contract with the outside provider. And if anybody catches it, we go back and we say, hey, look, the material said that this estimation's for the city only and doesn't include outside labor. And that's somebody else's problem, I guess, but that's my job, is to think about somebody else's problem, whether I want to or not. So that's my only note, I guess. I'm a for sure yes at these costs, but things like that happen for one reason or another, and that would change my decision. But for right now, with the data that I've been presented, I would support this.
Thank you for your evaluation of this. And no, the greater price tag is not being proposed here. We would need to have a much different conversation should that have even been proposed.
Sure. Thank you.
Seeing no other lights on, I guess we'll go down the list. I think the first question is yes or no. I think everybody had spoken so far. It seems like it was a yes. But I think staff is also looking for direction on option 1, 2, or 3. Is that correct?
That is correct. So what I would like is the direction that, yes, we would like to move forward. And then I would like to proceed with the presentation where we will walk through 3 other decisions.
Okay, so are you looking for decisions as far as option 1, 2, or 3 now?
Just yes or no, would you like to do it? And then the second decision will be which option would you like to select?
And I guess you have more presentation to provide.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're looking just for yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, moving forward. So we have 3 options before you. And I've broke that down into a table. You can see that cost is not dramatically different across the board. The installation time is the same. Those 3 options are citywide sign replacement. That's a 1-to-1 exact replacement. The second option is the neighborhood gateway, or essentially placing it at the threshold of when the speed changes. And then there's also city gateway, which is crossing at the threshold of where you enter the city. There's a notification sign. Staff is recommending option number 2. Walking through those, you can see option number 1, and the positive associated with this is the high saturation of signage. The con is the most expensive. The neighborhood gateway, that's where we get into the pods and crossing of the thresholds of the sign. It is a compromise of option 1 and option 2. A con is it is a sign reduction overall. And decision number 3 is the city gateway signs. This would be no neighborhood signs, and there are potential enforcement issues associated with this option. So I'll move forward. There's also decision number 3, which is optional public outreach. As I mentioned before, this is recommended to be coupled with this kind of action and policy decision. And what this involves is partnering with FDOT, the MPO, Lee-Tran, those organizations, and having a pop-up event where we discuss speeds and give giveaways and do some public outreach on the safety of speed management. The outreach, should we move forward, this would start from council's approval. We would notify the public. There would be a period of public outreach where we would notify the public that we're getting ready to perform work. As we're nearing the end of completing the work, there would be a warning period for PD and then another warning period before it goes to full enforcement. And then decision number 4, as it relates to those cut-through roads, this is the second phase of the study where we step outside of the local roadways and we look at the major roadways and those that are being utilized as cut-through roadways, and we look at specific treatments associated with that. In conclusion, those are your options. It sounds like we are moving forward with decision number 1, acceptance of the area-wide neighborhood speed study for reduction of 25 miles per hour citywide. And that leaves us with decision 2, 3, and 4, please.
What did you just say? I want to make sure I understand that.
It sounds like we are moving forward with option 1, the acceptance of the area-wide neighborhood speed study. So that leaves us with the remaining decision 2, 3, and 4, selection of an implementation option. Again, staff is recommending option number 2. Decision number 3, which is the public education campaign. If you would like to couple this with public education and do a pop-up where we can educate the public. And then lastly, phase 2 of the study, which would be the major roads, as well as those cut-throughs identified in this study where we would look at specific treatments.
Okay, and just so I'm crystal clear, when I make my decision, reference to decision 2, basically what you're saying is some of these roadways will stay the 30 mile an hour?
No, sir. So,
Show the map. If you go with option 2, which is cheaper, you're going to get those green dots. So if you live in a neighborhood where you're used to seeing a 30 mile an hour sign, if you go with option 2 in the neighborhood, that's going to be pulled away. And as you come off the divided roadway into the neighborhood is where the speed limit sign will be. So option 2 reduces sign clutter, is cheaper, but the risk in implementing that, if you all are willing to bear it, is that we will likely get complaints that, well, I used to have a 30 mile an hour speed sign. It wasn't replaced with a 20.
Okay.
Exactly.
Because it's going to be further back as you enter into the neighborhood, not in the neighborhood.
Well said.
And we're, just so I'm clear, we option 2 and option 1, there's only about a $5,000 difference, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Councilmember Donnell?
Yeah, 2 clarification. Number 1, the signs are already there. So, you know, the money is negligible. The signs are already there for option 1.
In the post.
So all we're doing is replacing them.
Yes, it would be a sign plate change out.
And then, but option 4, you're asking this decision. We don't have any, that's going to be a cost. If you proceed with the study, at the end of the day, that's going to be a cost to change the configuration for the cut-through roads. They're not going to stay the same. You're going to have to do something when you bring the data back.
Correct.
We're not having a conversation. I'm just saying, council, at this particular point, I think we start slow. We crawl before we run. So with that being said, are you ready for our decisions, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So I'm all over decision number 1. And as far as option 1, and yes, of course, you have to educate for decision 3. So yes, we're going to educate. And I'm a no for decision 4. for this particular time. That needs to come back after we get some data from what we're doing now.
Same.
On decision number 2, option 1, I am in favor of decision number 3 and decision number 4.
I'm sorry, did I miss what the cost of decision number 4 is?
Right now, I can provide a staff estimate that you're looking at between $100,000 and $150,000.
Okay. With the thought that there's only a difference of $5,000, and what we're looking for here, this is not an aesthetic decision. This is a change in behavior decision. Then I think we need all of the signs reminding people of what the speed limit is. So I would be option 1 for decision 2. And I would be in favor of decision 3, and I would be against decision number 4.
Okay, for me, my vote or opinion hasn't changed. Decision 1, we've already made. Decision 2 would be option 1. It's only a $5,000 difference. If anything, it may even be a little quicker because you're not dealing with poles and you're just changing how to sign. So option 1. Option 3, I do think there needs to be a educational campaign or communications has to be involved in that. I think that's important. And I don't agree with option or decision number 4 at this time. Councilmember Kilrain?
Yep. As far as, the speed study, of course, the decision number 2 is option number 1. The increment cost is nothing there. Decision 3, move forward, that you have to do it, and I'm against 4.
Yeah, so the first 3 for me are the same as the others with regards to option 1. The outreach is fine, and I'll likely agree with not moving forward with 4, but I'm just trying to look at the packet here. I think when we looked at the public comment, you guys also broke it down with the percentage relative to cut through traffic.
That is correct. There was
I'm just saying
strong,
if that percentage was high enough to maybe, or low enough to disregard it.
that's an excellent observation. So yes, there were significant,
Go ahead.
there were significant public comments because the next rational question in this series is, we did the local roads, now do we do the majors, the cut
Yeah,
throughs?
I think to me, we'd almost, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't look at it, but I think if you talk about public input with regards to people that are complaining, I think a larger portion is going to be for the cut throughs than you would see for residential speeding. So, in hindsight, I might have flipped this thing on its head and did the cut throughs first. I would probably support the cut through. It doesn't matter because I'm the only one, I think, but I would probably support that just because if we're handling this, that's the next step. Thank you.
So I'm clear, you would agree to the additional expense to move forward with decision 4, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, as much as I hate to do that with regards to how I traditionally voted.
You're spending dollars?
As far as my traditional votes
I just
for
wanted to clarify
consultants, I think if we're here about resident complaints, I think that should be more addressed than the other one. So, yeah.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter because, well, there's already 7 people, but I pick option 2. I am absolutely in favor for decision 3, yes. And decision 4, I would have started here because I think you guys know, I know Matt Williams, you know, that I've sat on Pine Island Lane, and that is a huge major cut through, and I get those complaints all the time. So for me, that is why we even have these complaints, is the cut through traffic, and Andalusia, those cut throughs, and Diplomat and those cut throughs. So behind Lowe's, everyone's hauling ass behind there. Yeah, that is, I'm in favor for decision 4.
Okay,
All right.
understood.
Give you the direction you're looking for.
Yes, I have predominantly number 1 is the preferred under decision 2. Option number 1 is the preferred method. Under decision number 3, to include public outreach, yes, we are looking to move forward with that. And then decision number 4, the vast majority of council is not in support of doing it at this point in time. As a concession, would it be acceptable to look at the scope and bring it forward with the resolution
No.
for consideration or no?
No.
No.
Okay, then no.
Okay. I know we've been here for about 2 hours and 45 minutes, so I know we got one last thing that I don't think will take too long, but I know I have a couple colleagues that they want to take a 10-minute break, so maybe we just take a quick 10-minute break and.
Can I ask for one thing? Can
Sure.
I get a second on the red light before we do that?
Well, when we come back.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. All right, so we'll take a 10-minute break. We'll come back.